I've had a lot of guests here over the years, and I got to tell you, I'm really excited to have Melody because I got to see her journey firsthand when she started StyleSeat, and she's also been a friend that I've got to know over the years, and just an absolutely amazing entrepreneur in every single way. Please join me in welcoming Melody. So I think most people here know what StyleSeat is. Many folks are probably customers. Raise your hand if you've used StyleSeat as a customer. Great. And raise your hand if you know what StyleSeat is. All right, so the vast majority of folks, obviously you got a lot of fans.
We're going to get some customer acquisition today.
Yeah, but just for the folks that maybe are getting to know the business or you for the first time, what's the one-liner elevator pitch about StyleSeat?
We are the largest destination to discover, book, and pay for beauty and wellness appointments all across the US. So 30% of hairstylists, makeup artists, nail artists in the United States have signed up for StyleSeat. We power their entire business. So we run their schedule, their client list, their website, online booking, payments processing. We grow their revenue by 70% in the first 15 months of them being on the platform. And for consumers, we're this great destination. Like, no one wants to call a salon and book an appointment manually. You can just pop open your phone and make it happen instantly.
What year did you found the company?
2011.
How many employees do you currently have?
60.
How much money have you raised?
40 million.
Awesome. Well, let's just start with your background. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in the exotic East Bay, so about 45 minutes outside of San Francisco. And I had lived in France for a year in school, and after I graduated, I decided I want to move to San Francisco to save money and move to Paris, which is hilarious. And I moved to San Francisco and got a job to sort of make that happen and kind of fell into the tech scene.
So this is in your early 20s, or? Okay. And did you have a drive when you were younger to do something entrepreneurial? When you were 10, 12, 15, what did you imagine your life 10 years forward?
I had no idea. I mean, I love computers. All of my friends were engineers. I was VP of the computer club in high school. Like, I loved all of that stuff, but I didn't really see a career for myself in the industry because I wasn't a developer. Mm-hmm. I'd taken coding classes, but I'm horrible at coding. So I wanted to be, like, entrepreneur as an idea was really exciting for me, but I didn't think that I had any applicable skills for the real world in any way. I was a political science and French major. And it wasn't until moving to San Francisco, our friends, most people that were kind of bumming around town back in what years was it? Like 2006, 7, 8, 9. Anyone who was interested in tech, they were all friends with each other. Mm-hmm. And all we would talk about, we'd get together and all we'd talk about is like client acquisition, retention, MVP, fundraising, how to hire, a co-founder, a developer. Like, we were just these little weird nerds running around San Francisco. There weren't that many.
Where'd you go to undergrad?
Davis, UC Davis.
And what'd you do right out of college?
Well, I asked my guidance counselor. I was like, what should I do? I have no freaking idea what I should do. I have all these ideas, but none of them are actually like a thing yet. And she said, you should get into PR because you're a woman and lots of women get into PR and it's a super versatile career. And I was like, cool. So I got into tech PR because it was a thing I cared about. And I was like the worst PR person ever in the history of the world because no company wants to hear like how they should completely change their strategy from their PR person, like, and rework their product and all of this stuff. Like, it was not successful. But I ended up getting hired by the CEO of one of my accounts. And so I was brought in to do a lot of things, but one of the things I did was to help run product.
And what company was that? Would we know it?
Oh my gosh, no. It was a company that doesn't exist anymore. It was like a YouTube for politicians and political issues. Like, David Cameron was an early member, and so like, it was fun. I'll say that. It was a fun job, but I ended up after that going to a company called Current TV, which is a little television network that not very many people watched. But it was, yes, there we go. Started by Al Gore. It was awesome and amazing. There's actually a lot of people like in Santa Monica and in Venice that used to work there. It was very much a family. But that was, I helped run distribution for them, online distribution. So I had a little P&L and a little team and a sort of like my first startup within another company.
How old were you at the time then?
Like 24, 25.
So one of the things I try to do in the events is pull out really applicable lessons from, our guest experience, the folks here. You hire a lot of millennials now, people that are starting their career. You were obviously really ambitious. What advice do you have for folks that are starting their career in the tech industry? Because there's a lot of upward mobility that people don't often realize, and there's so much opportunity that sometimes people don't take advantage of fully.
Yeah, I think I was really obsessed with every move that I make, whether it's a career move or event that I go to or skill that I want to learn, like every day, I was so obsessed with like every day being a step towards my goal and my dream. And I wish that I just chilled the F out and like...
Oh, I thought you were going to say that was the secret, is to be so driven.
I just put a lot of pressure on myself and was really intense. And I think if I had just relaxed and said, I want to meet everyone that I can, I want to learn as much as I possibly can, which I was doing. But every minute that you learn, every person that you meet, every connection you make is sort of a step in that direction. If I'd relaxed a little bit, I think I could have like put the pressure off a little bit, and you'll figure it out. But I think one thing that really helped was just meeting as many people as I possibly could, networking. Because when we did end up fundraising, we bootstrapped for the first year and a half, but when we did end up fundraising, we had some great relationships already, so that was really helpful.
Were you a natural networker? Was that something that was already part of your DNA, or was that a skill you had to learn?
I think I was not horrible at it, but it's because like we were always talking about stuff that I really cared about. Like I'm not an enormously charismatic person. I'm super introverted and like a homebody, and like now if I don't see a person, personally for like a week, I'm like so happy. But in the beginning, like I wanted to learn, I wanted to meet people, I wanted to see how the world works. Just talking about like going to tons of conferences and events and meetups. It's just how you learn how things work, and then you start to have conversations, and once you have that base of knowledge and that base network of people, you can walk into a conversation knowing something and bringing something to the table, and I think that helped.
So you're in your mid-20s. When you were at Current TV, did you know then that you wanted to be starting your own business?
Yeah, I did. I had the idea for StyleSeat 2 years before I started the company, but I was too scared to do it. And it's like, I really want to do this. This is the idea I'm obsessed with. I brainstormed ideas all the time. Like my brother and sister are here. They would have to hear me talking about, ideas literally every day. But I was overwhelmed with these thoughts constantly. It's like, well, I can't actually do it because I'm not smart enough. I am not an engineer. I didn't go to an Ivy League school. I don't know 100% of what's needed to start this company. I've never started a company before. It was like every time I would dream about it, I would also have 100 reasons why I shouldn't do it. And like that stopped me for so long. And it wasn't until like 2 years into having this like crazy circle in my head that I realized, I woke up one day and I was like, if someone else starts this company and it's not me, I'm gonna lose my mind. It will be the biggest regret. Like you can't think about and obsess about something for years and then not do something and then someone else does it. Like I will regret that for the rest of my life. And then once I made that shift in thinking, it was like, okay, that would upset me more than if I started this company and I failed in front of everyone that I know. That failure in front of everyone I know is less bad than me not doing this and someone else doing it.
Yeah. So I want to dive into the self-doubt that you had for a little, and all the reasons you thought that, it would be hard or challenging, because that's a pretty common pattern I think a lot of us face. Was that something that you felt like was reinforced externally, or were those kind of your own hang-ups that you had? And do you feel like there's any difference, do you feel like men just maybe sometimes have more bravado or arrogance to think that they can do whatever, where women will tend to be more detailed oriented and perfectionists?
Yeah.
It's a pattern I see sometimes where there are women that are much more capable than potential male entrepreneurs, but the guys just jump in because they have the bravado to think that they can do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's 50-50. Like 50% of it was just me being a perfectionist, being in my head, not having the confidence, because I had people around me, certainly within my own network. I didn't know a single woman that had started a company, not one. So now it's completely different. We all know tons of women that have started companies, but I personally didn't know a single female founder.
And that's in the Bay Area in
San
2005,
Francisco.
2006.
Yeah. So they existed, but they were either like Sheryl Sandberg level, where it's just too far removed, or they just weren't in my friend circle. So I think that was part of it. It's like there aren't these people around me that I feel like are like me or that I really emulate.
That you can model and say, oh, this person that I know did it, well, then I can too.
Or I can't run and have a conversation with someone and ask them how they did it. It was all dudes. But at the same time, the guys that I knew were super supportive of me. And they were like, what's wrong with you? Like, stop being crazy. Like, just start a company. Of course you can. And you have to hear that a couple times. When you really don't believe it, you're like, no, oh, okay. You know, it's so self-effacing. I was such a little nerd. Like, I mean, I didn't know how to, I like hardly wore makeup. I dyed my hair out of a box black. Like, physically I was just like lost entirely. And I like wanted to start this beauty company, and like, it was a joke.
So you started a company to give yourself a makeover.
Pretty much. I was supposed to get hair and makeup done before I came, and we don't service airplanes on the tarmac yet, so that didn't happen.
You should talk to the CEO about that.
Yeah, seriously.
See if you can make that happen. So talk more about the impetus for the idea. You know, I talk a lot about the fact that for people not to get too hung up on an idea, because I think that sometimes that prevents people from just moving forward. They wait for that perfect idea. But this was clearly something where you were passionate and driven about the actual concept. What did you see as the pain point, and what drove you to want to bring it to life?
Well, I knew I wanted to start a company that ran small businesses, that was a cash register. I wanted dollars to flow through the system. I didn't want to do a consumer app.
Why was that important to you?
What was really big at the time of me starting StyleSeat was consumer. Like, the idea of a marketplace actually didn't exist. That was not a common thing. That was not a trendy thing to do. And there were a lot of like, it was like Dig was really big, and like all the big companies were like these consumer companies. And I love tech, I love apps, I play with them all day long, but I'd seen so many apps and I was like, I can't really tell the difference between what's gonna be huge and what's not. I want to like run small businesses. I want to build something that's meaningful and changes lives. And I want to give myself a makeover. I was also frustrated at how hard it was to find a hairstylist. Because I felt like either you have to be the world's expert in, I mean, you can go to Yelp, right? You can go to review sites, you can ask a friend, but both of those are very hit or miss. Yelp tells you a lot about a particular salon, right? And like the scoop on a salon, but you can't actually figure out the people that work there. Like, I want to see, I'm data driven, I want to see, and like a lot of girls, like, guys, you want to find a totally good barber who's available when you need them, that's not crazy priced. Like, generally that's what it is. You want to see a couple photos and like you're fine. It's more about convenience. Like with women, if you want to get blonde balayage, it's like $300, $400, $500. And so if you're going to get that service, I want to know the best blonde balayage in my neighborhood. I want to see photos of her work or his work specifically. I want to know that I don't have to wait 6 months for an appointment. It's like there's 5 pieces of information basically that I want, and I don't want to have to call every single salon in San Francisco to like try and figure it out. Like Instagram, you couldn't stalk stylists back in the day. You had to just know. And that really frustrated me. It was like, just because I don't obsess about hair all day every day doesn't mean I shouldn't be able to look good and professional. I was like mad about that. So it was like the two things. You know, what I love about the site and what we do is that when we started StyleSeat, 20% of this industry, in the beauty industry, were independent. Most stylists are employees, used to be. Today, 70% of stylists are independent. And what that means is that they're entrepreneurs, they're running their own business, they're paying rent to get a chair in a salon, but they're brand new business owners. And they want to be professional, they want to make a living, they're so passionate about their work, they're choosing to like support people, work with strangers, like talk to them about their lives. Like that's such a cool, they're artists, that's such a cool profession, but they're not necessarily super passionate about the fundamentals of like client acquisition or retention or referral programs and payments processing and like all that crap, right? And I was sort of like, I talked to all these stylists and salon owners, and I was like, I love you. I love everything that you do. I'm so jealous of your talent. Like, I want to help you be an incredible business owner and make a lot more money and do what you love and make a better living.
So let's go to the very beginning of the journey, because I think what's really fascinating is, you weren't a repeat entrepreneur, so it wasn't like you could just walk into venture. You were in a new category. You didn't fit the bill of the typical person getting funding, right? You were one of the, a smaller minority of women going out to raise. A lot of folks here are in just that situation, and some of the most common questions we get are, how do I even get my first seed off the ground? How do I get investors to pay attention to what I'm doing? Walk us through the period of time from when it was an idea that you actually started working on it, and what that first year looked like, and what that playbook was for you to actually build some momentum and turn an idea into something that became a company.
I had some early conversations. I was like, hey, I want to build the largest destination to book beauty appointments. And I couldn't have been laughed out of offices faster.
Really?
By VCs back in like 2009 or 10.
What was the reaction? What were they saying?
It was like, that's a horrible idea. That is a horrible idea. Like, hairstylists will never use technology. It's not hard to find a hairstylist. Women, I know you say they spend a lot on beauty. They don't. It's very dramatic.
I got upset about those VCs saying it wasn't a problem. Damn them!
They were just like, 30% of, this is not official, but my guess is that 30% of VCs are bald. Like, they just didn't care. And so it's funny.
Can we just pause? Can somebody please tweet that at MelodyMC? This is not official, but 30% of VCs are bald. That is a great quote.
My co-founder and I actually would have a whole thing where we would walk into a room when we were fundraising, and if more than one person was bald out of the group of people, no deal. It wouldn't happen. And I remember us walking in, I'm not gonna say the name of the firm, but we walked into the firm, and it was like 2 or 3 bald dudes. And I just went, ugh. And he goes, it'll be a practice run. It'll be a practice run. And they were like, no, and we were like, we're out of here.
Oh, that's great. Did you go straight to pitching VCs, or did you raise a seed round to start?
So we couldn't raise. We ended up bootstrapping for the first year and a half. And what is great about that,
You literally didn't raise a dime.
Okay, so what did we do? Actually, so I still worked at Current TV.
Okay, so you were working on this on the side. You said you had a co-founder. Who was that?
His name is Dan Levine. He was the first engineer at Current TV. He and I worked really closely together. And he's like this brilliant, crazy hacker. And he would come to work every week. Like, one week he would have bright red hair, the next week it would be bright green, then it'd be like leopard print, then he'd have a mohawk. Like, he was crazy. And I was like, if there's any dude that I'm gonna start a hair company with, it's this guy. A hair startup.
Got it.
And what happened was, one of my friends, Garrett Camp, turned to me and was like, you need to start this company.
Garrett, the founder, stumbled upon the founder and chairman of Uber.
Yes.
That's a good person to turn to and say,
Yes.
start this company.
It's not bad. Uber wasn't really a thing yet.
Yeah.
It was a thing, but not a big thing. And he was like, you need to start this company. Here's $10,000. This will at least let you quit your job. I was paying $400 a month in rent at my apartment because I was living in a closet, actually a closet. And I'd done that for years, so I'd saved up like a couple $1,000s, and I was basically spending like $1,000 a month like a hermit crab. And because I wanted to start this company, and like that was really important to me.
I think that's a point that's often overlooked, which is if you strap yourself with really high expenses, or if you're committed to leading a certain lifestyle before you're an entrepreneur, it gets a lot harder to make that leap. You didn't have anywhere to fall, right?
Yeah.
You already
I was
didn't
bottom.
have you were already living in a closet. Where were you going to go?
Totally. I had to break into my apartment all the time because like my door didn't work. I had to scale into the second story. It was like.
All right, so you're breaking into your house, and that gives you the confidence to know that you can start a company.
The confidence to know that it couldn't get worse.
Yeah.
Basically.
But you have a couple $1,000s in savings. If Garrett Camp says he'll give you 10,000, I mean, this is not.
As my first angel, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but a lot of people say, oh, I can't pull this off because I just can't find a co-founder. I can't find the money. I mean, you're a real life, living, breathing example of someone that didn't have some preset amazing network, no access to huge amounts of capital, and on a really small amount of resources.
Yeah.
You got it going.
Yeah. And so we bootstrapped for the first year and a half. I pitched Dan, and I was like, we had worked together for years. We were like really close. But I was like, what kind of life do you want to lead? Like I sat him down and like pitched him this big vision. And after like 4 sentences, he was like, I'm in. And I was like, perfect. Can't pay you for like the foreseeable future, like a year. And he was like, that's fine. And I was like, you might have to put like 6 figures into the company. And he was like, I already said yes. Where are you talking me out of it? I was like, great. Because he had a little bit of savings put away. And so he and I together didn't pay ourselves. We worked out of a friend's house. We found our first engineer on Craigslist. I found this engineer before I found Dan. Because I was like, how do you find an engineer? And Garrett's like, just go on Craigslist. And so I did. And I was like, an engineer who will work for free. And this guy raised his hand. He was like, I've made a ton of money off of Google and I'm bored. Sometimes I might leave and fly on my airplane for like multiple weeks, but like you're welcome to work out of my house and like I'll code your prototype. So that happens.
That is amazing. There is statistically a much greater chance that person would have turned out to have been a serial killer
Totally.
than a self-made millionaire from Google who was bored and trolling Craigslist to see who wanted to start a company.
Yes, girl, come to my home.
Yeah.
We worked out of his house.
But isn't that crazy though? Because that just shows you, I mean, that's not a typical story, but that's what happens when you put yourself in the game. You just put out an ad, right? How many people, don't even go to Craigslist and say, I'm looking for the free developer. You put yourself in the game. Was that person a good engineer? Did he help early on? Oh,
totally
wow.
awesome. Tyler's amazing.
Wow.
And he would just leave, and I'd be at his house, and I'm like, where's Tyler? And I'd text him, and he'd be like, I'm in Texas. Like, okay, when are you coming back? I don't know. Okay.
Wow.
But it was like, so that's what we did. So we started, he built the prototype. That's how I recruited Dan. We continued to work out of Tyler's house. And we built the first version of the company. And after a year and a half, we raised our first capital. And what was great about that is rather than like, hey guys, I have a dream. Like we want to transform the beauty industry. And like that pitch falls flat. It was like, well, we're powering tens of millions of dollars a year already and appointments booked across our platform. We're powering, here's what our engagement looks like. The cohort data looks amazing.
So how did you get used to the first year and a half? Because it's, everyone pitches the idea of what they want to build and what it's going to do and how it's going to be different. And my feedback is always, okay, wave a magic wand, it's done. Now what? What do you do day 2? So what did you do for that year and a half after the first version of the product was built to get usage without much money?
So I emailed all my friends and I was like, do you know a hairstylist? Send me their email address. I like blasted 100 of my friends. I got a bunch of email addresses. I spammed these people and I said, I want to get you drunk. And I want to tell you about like my dreams for transforming the beauty industry. And they were like, okay, like so random. So we went to Costco and we got like $26 bottles of like Prosecco. My mother cooked food for all these strangers. We showed up like at this venue that like a salon that Dan's upstairs neighbor happened to have. And so we like showed up at our house, made everyone bring their laptops, no product, no nothing. I showed a PowerPoint presentation that I like made. I like sketched things out on a piece of paper and was like showing them what the site would look like. It was so pathetic, but for them we said, we have no product, we haven't launched anything yet, but here's our vision, here's our dream. Your biggest challenge is that you either track clients by 3x5 cards, or if you're independent, your salon keeps that client information, you don't get it. And so they hold you hostage, right, for your business. We want to help you track your clients. We want to help send them reminders, follow-ups, thank yous after their appointments. We think that we can grow your business by 30%, is what we said. So help us do that. Commit to us 3 months. We're going to send you, test flight of like our app when it's live in whatever weeks, and we would love to get your feedback, and we will come to you. And so like Dan and I sat in salons every day for like 6 months. Like we would just come and we'd like watch how they interacted and like show them the new version of the app and get feedback. And what we ended up having is thousands of stylists within the first couple of months, because it was like the pitch that they would send to each other, stylists talk to each other, was, I know these two crazy people, and like they don't know anything about the beauty industry really, but they have a vision and a dream, and we should support them. And you know, getting people drunk like doesn't hurt either when you want to get something from them.
Yeah.
So that's how we got our first couple users, and it was like raw passion, and they were like, this is kind of a pain in the ass, but you're crazy, you love it, Dan's crazy, his hair's great. And so like we want to work with you because we see the vision that you're preaching. And then the app started getting better slowly over time, and then we were actually making the money.
What was scariest year one for you? Those moments that you had self-doubt before you took in any self-funding. What was going through your head year one in those scary moments?
It was just all that shit in your head. Like all the things about like, oh, you get overwhelmed because there's so much that you have to do to start a company. And by the way, it doesn't get easier 5 or 6 years later. It just gets different. But it's totally overwhelming. And the emotional shit that you have to deal with is as hard as the actual business building stuff.
What was an example of that?
When an investor treats you like crap, right? Or when someone is just like, you know, thinks that you're a completely ridiculous person, which you are, because if you have a vision or you think the world should work differently, that is completely ridiculous. So you get that all the time. Or when someone doesn't want to work for you. Or when a stylist is like, I hate this. Or, you know, I talked to a fancy salon owner and he'd be like, this is disgusting. And I'm like, this is my dream. You know?
Wow.
Just all those constant things. I think, you know, other founders or you comparing yourself to others, like that's a way to like really take yourself down to the bottom of the ocean really fast, is when you compare yourself to other people. And what's really funny about that is like, I should have fundraised way faster than we fundraised. I waited too long because I was too fearful. I'm like, wait, we need to grow our metrics by 50%. We need to, well, let's just wait 2 more months until, you know, because when the numbers are bigger. And the reality is, like, we could have gone out 6 months earlier.
Yeah.
But I was just fearful, and I was holding myself back.
During that first year, it was your first time running your own company. I have this philosophy that everybody professionally is best at one thing. And especially entrepreneurs, the one thing that they're best at drives a lot of the success. What did you find out early on? What did you discover about yourself that you were best at, better at than anything else that you did?
I was good at convincing people to try the product, to use the product, to give me feedback, to not slam the door in my face, to maybe work with us. I was good at being like, this is so imagine a world. Like, this is the way the world should work, because I really deeply believe that in my bones. And so that was easy for me to do. And what's interesting is I have a career coach now, and when we first started working together a couple of years ago, he was like, don't discount the things that are really easy for you. A lot of people will discount the things that are easy for you as like they're not real skills. Like, well, but I want to get really good at the hard stuff. And the reality is, like, maybe you should just really stick with the stuff that's easier for you and that you really enjoy, because you're probably way better at that thing.
And for you, those easy things were convincing people, persuading them, getting feedback, building product. What else?
Building product, definitely. I'm obsessed with our product. I still know more about our product than half the people at the company. I mean, I love it. I live and breathe it. Like, I harass every single product person at the company, like, every weekend, all day, because I'm, like, constantly finding problems. I know all of our metrics, like, top, bottom, bottom up. Sometimes, like, I mean, we have a great data team, but
yeah.
I've been
you find things that
I've
they
been
don't.
living and breathing it for a lot longer, you know?
I get it. So talk about that first fundraise. It's a year and a half in. This is now 2008, right? 2009?
We launched in 2011, so I think we raised in 2011.
Okay.
I
remember when you were down here pitching at Jason Calacanis's
yes.
Open Angel Forum.
Very first Open Angel Forum.
Which is where Uber raised their angel round from too. I mean, I was at
I know
the
Travis
meeting.
told me to go.
Yeah, I didn't have any money, or else I would have invested. Dumb me. I should have taken out a loan.
That's so funny.
But I was there while you were pitching.
Yeah.
How much did you raise in that very first round?
We did raise, so we ended up raising, I think Jason didn't come in that round, but I think we did raise some from that. We ended up raising our first round via AngelList. And Travis was actually the person.
So you were one of the very early companies to raise on AngelList.
Yeah, very, very early.
What was that experience like?
Well, Travis recommended it, and he was like, I'll put your name out as social proof.
Travis, the CEO of Uber.
Yes. And so like a bunch of so many people have sent this to me actually in the past like year or two where it's like, Travis Kalanick wants you to, invest in StyleSeat. And they're like, I didn't do it. And I'm like, yeah, you didn't do it. Thanks a lot. But we raised our first $700K from AngelList.
How many different investors?
Oh, like 20 or something. I don't know.
It's a lot.
It was angels.
And what was it like for the first time having
probably less
outside
than that. Maybe
capital?
It was like 8 or 10. I'm probably being dramatic.
What was it like for the first time having outside capital and people that you felt responsible to and you had to report things to?
Well, my first instinct was like, oh my God, you have $700,000 in the bank. Can I go withdraw it from the bank and like bring it to a hotel room and like throw it on the bed and like take photos? Like I was in massive debt personally. I'd never had $2 to rub together that was like in the black. So this was just, and I'm like, people gave me money. That's crazy, But I was super stingy. Once you are my budget in the early days was nothing. I was literally eating beans from a can. Like every day I was spending zero money, like crazy person style. Once you bootstrap for that long, like you get crazy about money, which I think is really good, right? You become very efficient and you do not waste it because you know how hard it is to come by. So we still worked out of Tyler's apartment. I think we hired a couple people, but we were very, very, very lean.
And then when did you raise the next round of capital and how much was that?
We raised like 700 more. We did a couple angel hits before we did our Series A. Mm-hmm. And so then like Ashton came in, Ashton and Guy, he told me recently like, you were our first big check that we wrote, which was kind of cool. And like we had a couple famous people on that one, which was totally mind-blowing and bizarre to me. Mm-hmm. But it didn't change anything. It's the same exact stuff. And so it's like every bit of money that we had allowed us the honor of running our company for a little bit longer, which was really great. Mm-hmm. And then a little time passed and we raised a Series A from Lightspeed, which was a little over 10. And then we raised our Series B from a firm called Fosun, and that was a $25 million round.
So talk about that journey from in a short period of time, 3-4 years, you went from being turned away by every investor you talked to, and they said this is a crazy idea, it's not going to work. You spent 1.5 years bootstrapping the company, which the vast majority of people don't do, especially in the venture world. And then
it's also because I had to.
Yeah, you had to.
There's more money now, so if you don't have to.
But you
although it does give you discipline, there are a lot of benefits to it.
Yeah, but in a short span of time, it was a tale of two cities for you. You lived the getting rejected, bootstrapping life to raising a mega round. What was the experience like being on the other side? Were you able to raise really large rounds, and what advice do you have for the folks here on raising capital?
The thing about fundraising is it is hard. And every time you go through it, it's the hardest experience ever because unless you're like at a deeper level than I'm at, like I don't think fundraising will ever be hard for Travis, right? But unless you're at a different level, the whole purpose of fundraising, when you start the process, and you have to get as many meetings into that first 2 weeks as you possibly can.
Why? Why is that critical?
Well, you don't want to tell one person that you're raising casually. Like sometimes I'll talk to founders. I advise a handful of companies. I'll talk to founders and they're like, yeah, I'm raising. And I'm like, well, are you raising or you're not raising? Because there's no I'm raising. Like, are you raising? What's your schedule? What's your pipeline? Like, show me the Excel spreadsheet. You need to have 4 meetings lined up per day because what you don't want is a deal that's out there that's sitting. Where one VC talks to another VC and they're like, oh yeah, I talked to that person, 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, and they said they were raising, but like no momentum has happened. you decide, you can have some conversations and say, I'm thinking about raising.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, we might raise. I don't actually know. But you know. And you have to know when that start date is, and you have to have X amount of meetings lined up, as many meetings as you possibly can. You have your first pancakes in the beginning, you warm up to, you know, your A's, maybe do some B's first, then you go to your A's. But you want to have as many meetings lined up in between then, because you want a VC to talk to another VC and go, oh yeah, actually wait, I have a meeting with her in 2 days. And then they go, oh, okay, this is like something that they call a couple other VCs, yeah, I'm meeting with her tomorrow. And so then it feels like there's a lot of momentum there. And you want to create that froth and that fervor, because unfortunately, the appearance of a deal is more important than the substance of the deal, at least in Silicon Valley. So
Can you explain that more?
Um,
The appearance of the deal is more important than the substance of the deal. At
for
least in
raising
Silicon
around,
Valley.
I'm not saying it should be that way. Don't quote me. It's like
Yeah,
horrible.
no.
But here's the challenge, right? It's a many to one situation. There's two challenges. One is that VCs write checks. They're not graded. Their fund doesn't get to show how well it did for a period of 10 years. And before then, they're raising multiple funds, right? So you have VCs that have no report card, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
They're raising money, and they hope that their companies do well, but you have no idea how your company is going to do well. And they're also assuming that 1 in 10 company is going to do well. So they're making bets, assuming that 9 of them will fail, 1 of them will do well, that 1 will pay for the whole fund, and that they can do that many times over, right? The challenge with that is it's not like you're making an investment and then 3 months later you learn, is that good or is that bad? Let's break this down on why this company worked or didn't, and let's use those earnings for the next company. It doesn't work that way. It's not that scientific. So you sort of have people that are like making bets, and they're not graded for a long period of time. And so they have to, what they do have is like word on the street. Is this a good company? Not. Is this an awesome founder or not? Like, what's the scoop? What's the reputation? And they have to use that as a huge measure of like, is this business going to do well? Because especially in early stage, you can put, like everyone's charts go up and to the right. Like everyone is going after a $100 trillion opportunity. And so they kind of have to use their instinct on things. And so you can help their instinct by
Creating scarcity.
And like letting them have these, you want those conversations where they're like, oh, really? Is she really good? Oh, okay, cool. Oh yeah, I talked to her and like we had this great interaction. Did you know, here's 1 nugget, here's 2 nuggets. Like you want them to like take those little jewels that they can share with each other and start to drum up that frothiness and excitement.
So you said your team size 60 people now? What's your management style? How would you, as you went to, thank you. As you started hiring more and more people, what do you, let's start with what's your management style. How do people describe you as a boss? And what do you want to get better at?
I have no idea, actually. That's the problem with leadership, is people stop telling you what they think. Actually, when you have a bigger
When did
company,
that happen? When did people stop telling you what they thought about you?
Like 20 or 30 people. Like 20 or 30 people. I mean, my first employee was my roommate in college. My second employee was the brother of my co-founder. Like they were like friends, people we'd known for a really long time. And so it's like you hire people that can do it all, that are generalists, and that you really trust. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's good.
That's better. So high maintenance. And then you start to hire specialists. And then you start to get big where you don't have direct relationships with people. They're not your best friends. You haven't known them forever. And so they just become more and more separated from you. You're not working with them every day. You're not sitting next to them all day, every day. And so you just have, like, by that property, you have different types of relationships with people. I am extremely hands-off. I think my strategy is, like, come in, be a self-starter. I'll be very clear about what success is, very clear about numbers and performance. And you do it or you don't do it. And I'm here to help. My whole job is to like break down barriers for people to block and tackle. Tell me if you have an issue. Do you have an issue with me? Fine. Do you have an issue with someone? Like, I'm very much like, let's filter through all the stuff to like get you what you need. But if you can't do it on your own, pretty much, it doesn't work. I think the people that do not like working with me are the people that really like to have very collaborative all day, every day type of working style, and that work for me.
What are the characteristics that you most look for in people that you hire? So you mentioned self-starters.
Self-starter, tenacious, data-driven. Like, can you just get shit done?
Yeah.
I do a lot of back channeling before people that we hire. I talk to everyone that they've ever met, and I'm like, but how good are they? But like, you know, I need specific examples. I have long conversations with people that they've worked with. It's really important to me.
Yeah.
And then still, you know, it's hit or miss. So you have to just get really good at saying like, hey, this isn't working out.
What are the things as a manager and leader that you want to get better at now? You talked about having a career coach.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're pretty self-reflective in the process. What have you self-identified as the biggest area that you want to improve upon?
I think one of my challenges is that I am super data driven, and my coach has told me like what's good about this is that I can distill down complexity like that. So if there's all these crazy problems, I can just see like how it should fit together. But what it also means is like when I think about how it should work, I think about all the possibilities, which means I can get a little bit of paralysis. And so sometimes I need to get better at like making decisions faster because, for example, if you're thinking about a certain strategy, a certain tactic you want to employ, you're thinking about company strategy, I can see all the options and I want to think through them all. And sometimes you just have to say it's a combination of speed and good decision making based on data. And like somewhere in between is the right choice. So I go back, I'm always trying to like make sure along that plane, like I'm doing that right.
Who are your professional mentors and what have you learned from them? You mentioned at the start of the journey there weren't people that were in your position that you could model. It's different today and you have access to a lot more folks. Who do you look up to? Who's mentored you and what have you learned from them?
My mentors have changed. Like Travis worked at StyleSeat for the first 6 months, 3 days a week. Because he was like my friend and he's nuts and he's just fun to work with. But then as he started working more with his company, I worked with this woman, Jenny Lefcourt, who's now a VC at Freestyle Capital. She started a company that became WeddingChannel.com that she sold. And her old co-founder went off to start Sell-In, Jessica Heron. So she's just this amazing business leader. And we were starting to do BD and really distill down our strategy. And she was really great for that piece of the business. And then we sort of moved beyond that and our needs became a little bit more specialized. And so I had to work with specialized marketing people, or it's you have to find the person that really helps you with your biggest needs for the company at that time. And they've always been different people, like Padma Sri Warrior, who used to be CTO of Cisco. When I was starting to think about choosing my board and thinking about what advisors to bring onto the business, she has a very long-term strategy about the world and hilarious thoughts and philosophies on life and how you should think about establishing yourself for the long term. And she's been really great. So it's different people at different times.
Yeah. So what's the...
Now I just brought on someone onto my board. Her name is Linda Kozlowski. She was the CEO of Evernote. Now she's the CEO of Etsy. And she's a total badass. I'm here's these 4 problems. And she's solution, solution, solution next.
What have you learned from her? What's she really good at that you're able to draw on?
Sometimes you can have a relationship, relationships with people in my company where my vision of them and their performance is a little bit clouded because I like them as people. And I'm I'm having this challenge in this department. She'll be tell me about it. And she'll ask 4 questions. And then we'll both know the answer at the end of it. And she's you sometimes you need to be more objective. Here's an example of that.
It's pretty powerful.
Helping me with board relations. That's something that unfortunately you have to start.
Can you talk about that? I think that's a really important process for entrepreneurs and everybody working, which is this concept of managing up. And I think people often don't realize how important that is, whether you're in an entry-level role, director, VP, C-level exec, or entrepreneur. You always have to manage up. What are the things you've learned about that? How do you go about it? And what advice would you have for others?
Well, with every company, we will do $1.7 billion in bookings this year, which is almost double last year. Our scale is big. But at the same time, every company has ups and downs. And you try some things and they don't work, and you try other things. And the challenge with outside partners like investors is that they get so excited when things are going well, and some of them will go real dark. Not dark like not talking to you, like dark like actively upset in lots of ways when something doesn't like work out in particular. And those types of things are hard to deal with because as a founder, you're like, well, we'll just figure it out. You're always like that. Resiliency is like the number one characteristic of like every founder that I know, because it's like, oh, that happened. Oh, my hair's on fire right now. Well, how do I solve that? Like now my leg got chopped off. Okay, great. Like let's fix that. And then like the next hour it's another thing. And so learning how, like an investor by definition is someone who looks for an opportunity and minimizes risk. And so they're always thinking about minimizing risk as part of, and I'm like, I don't minimize risk. Like I'm about just running towards what's working and doubling down on that, and trying to do it smart. But it's about like going after an opportunity and a dream, right? And now you have to, when you get older and you work with older in the life of the company and you start working with investors, you start to learn that you deal with them differently, and you have to think about how you position things, and you have to think about it. Sometimes your interests don't align with your investors. That sucks, but it definitely happens, and it happens to every single founder. If they say it's not true, they're lying. And so you have to figure out, okay, even when you love that investor, here's where our interests differ, and so how do I get what I want, which I think is best for the company? And those types of issues, like you should be working with, whether it's other entrepreneurs or awesome board members or advisors. Do not talk to investors about this stuff. Only talk to entrepreneurs, because they'll give you the real scoop. But that's an example of like a skill that I had to learn. Because in the beginning, you're like, I have a dream and I'm going to achieve it, and then you start to learn that in order to achieve it, you have to round out your skill set.
Yeah, I've heard obviously a big topic in tech is more diversity in hiring, both when it comes to gender and people of color, different backgrounds. You have one of the most diverse teams of anybody I've ever met. Can you just talk about that? I've heard you often say that was never a conscious objective of yours. You didn't have to go out of your way to build a diverse team. You just looked for great talent and it happened.
We did and we didn't. Because I want to clarify that. So our community is 50% African American. And it would be pretty messed up if it was a bunch of white dudes sitting in San Francisco, like building products for people of color and for a diverse audience. Like that just wouldn't make sense, and we would be doing a disservice to our community. So, on the one hand, like if you only have one hire, you're just going to hire the first engineer that's decently good so you can get to building.
Whoever responds on Craigslist.
Totally. And we were lucky because our first couple developers were diverse, but there was a point in the business really early on where I was like, that will not be what we stand for. Like, we are diverse in community, we will be diverse on our team. And so we did actively seek it out. And turns out, like, there's so much amazing talent out there of people that are diverse, of women, of people of color, of, whatever it is that you're looking for. And we're diverse both that way in terms of sexuality, in terms of, all of the things. Like, we're
And you think it builds upon itself? Do you think, because
it does.
You're in a position of leadership and, and not the traditional white guy, and the company is more diverse, that it attracts more talent?
Part of our whole thing is like we're the underdog, right? We're a hair startup in Silicon Valley. Like, what is that? Our community is super diverse. You get a couple of people that come to the company, a couple of female developers, and they tell all their female developer friends.
But really quickly, it's more than just hairstylists now, right? It's a whole set of beauty services. Outside of hair, what are the other big categories that you service?
Barbers are huge. We've got a lot of dudes that are using StyleSeat to run their business. Esthetician, so that's someone who does waxing, facials. Nail artists, so people that do cool manicures or even just your regular mani-pedi.
Susie here in the audience is a friend of mine. She's got a great eyebrow business. If anyone needs their eyebrows done, I haven't had mine done yet, but she's absolutely amazing.
Thank you. We got to get you on StyleSeat.
Yeah, it's super interesting. I want to talk to you about all that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's a different structure. So.
Cool.
And what's the future look like for you? What's the biggest, most ambitious, bold thing that you want to accomplish over the next couple of years?
God, we're doing something crazy right now, which is focusing on monetization. So that's exciting and fun. Like growth is like a whole thing, and then.
But monetization was there in the platform from day one, right? I mean.
Yeah, it was. We were free, and then we did turn on premium features. But we were. What happened is like things were growing so fast. Like we have 420,000 businesses right now that use us. We power 2.1 million appointments a month. Like this, we're doing $130 million a month.
2 million appointments a month. Wow.
Yeah. So it's like that growth is happening, and to like stop and
But
like move the developers.
how big's your customer service team?
8 people.
Okay. Out of 60.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, and one of the challenges is that we're a freemium platform, which means
Yes.
it's totally free to run your business, and then we have premium tools. And the challenge with that is that you get, it's the 80-20 rule, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you get some businesses that are not fully engaged, and then they have lots of problems. And so you're supporting the challenges of the masses, and you
Yes.
don't get to support the challenges of the people that are actually driving value for your platform. So one of the things that we're doing is we're going to start to charge a monthly fee, a $35 a month fee for our stylists to run their business, which is very reasonable. We're the only free platform out there today.
Mm-hmm.
But that will be, and has been, as you can imagine, very dramatic
Yeah.
to go from free to paid.
One of the things I've found consistently in the companies I've run, invested, advised, is it's always a scary thing to ask your users for money, but every time you do it, just like the experience you had fundraising, you think to yourself, I should have done it sooner and I should have been more aggressive about it.
Yeah.
I remember the day that we switched DocStock, our previous company, from a completely free platform to a subscription service that people had to pay to download the content, and I thought my engineers were going to revolt
You're
and
like,
murder
this
me.
is the end.
Yeah.
Totally.
No,
Because the engineers
yeah.
don't want to charge for it.
They were so
They
angry
care about
at
the
me.
user. Yeah.
Yeah. And then 48 hours later, when they saw money coming in, their entire perspective changed. One of our engineers, Josh, literally built a counter that every time a sale happened, the bell rang, right? And it went from every couple hours to every hour to every 15 minutes to every minute.
Yeah. That's cool.
So it's an interesting transformation. One of the things I'm always curious about personally is, so when I sold DocStock, we were about 70 people. What's your meeting structure? How do you run? What are the meetings that you have in the company? How do you set up? Because I think that's helpful not only for folks running companies your size or larger, but folks early on. Now with our new company, you know, I use the same meeting structure I had when we were 10 times
I want
the
to know
size
your
we
meeting
are.
structure too.
Yeah, I'll be happy to share, but I'll give you mine quickly
Okay,
to frame the reference. So Monday morning exec. I want to start off meeting with the execs, get the plan. Sorry,
Start it off
Monday morning product meeting. Wednesday middle of the week on hump day exec. We go over all the core metrics for the company. Team lunch Wednesdays right afterwards. We would do all hands, so we would talk as a company about what's going on, just have a check-in. Obviously, daily stand-ups with the individual teams. Now, as a small company, we do an evening check-in where it's not about what you got done, but just how you felt about the day. We're small enough, there's 10 of us, that I ask the question to everybody, how'd you feel about today and what would make tomorrow better? And a mistake I made for a long time, for many years, is I used to run the company where we worked really late on Fridays and it burned people out. And now we try to break early on Fridays and do something social on that day. So that's the general meeting structure. And then I do half-hour one-on-ones with all my direct reports on Wednesday. So I block out Wednesdays almost as my entire management day. And I know
People
if I
day.
do that, yeah, my people day.
That's cool.
How do you do yours?
We have, instead of product meeting, it's Monday morning planning meeting, all hands. So that means Sunday night, people are prepping, building their decks on Friday for a Monday morning planning meeting. And then PM, it's like 9:30, all hands. And it's basically like, here's what we said we would do, here's what we did, here's what we're gonna do next, performance. But also, every department gets to sort of weigh in on the good, the bad, and the ugly. E-staff executive meeting on Tuesday. Everyone contributes agenda, I edit it, we run through it. We have a leads meeting on Wednesday, which is 30 minutes, like super ruthless timing, like you don't finish, you get cut off, just to keep everyone really honest about like, here's the performance, here's key concerns. We do founder sesh every other week, which is
Like a dinner or a meal?
it's like a 2-hour kind of just, there's wine and chill time, but the whole point is like tell me what are you fearful of? What scares you? What do you have questions around? What do you not understand? What do you want to know about me personally? Like anything for the team to get to know us and the DNA of the company and like
That's cool.
open up, like get drunk, like ask me the hard questions. Like this is a place for honesty. I think that's really important.
Getting drunk is a big theme of your business. I
It
like
is.
it.
It is.
It's a good recruiting
It's very
tool.
important. I mean, you don't have to drink if you
Yeah.
work here, but like honesty, it helps. It helps people loosen up.
How long are your engineering sprints? A week, 2 weeks?
Typically 2 weeks. We're close to continuous deployment, so we're releasing every day, but we'll do a sprint that's a 2-week sprint. And there are different teams that are on different sprint schedules. So some like payments processing, they know like the payments team.
Sorry, yeah.
Sorry, knows their roadmap very far in advance, for months in advance, and so they're very strictly on a 2-week schedule versus like the consumer team, the mobile teams, it kind of changes here and there, and so they're sort of constantly putting code out. So their sprint might be 4 days or 7 days or whatever.
Do you do performance reviews with your team, quarterly performance reviews?
We're not that good at it. We do. It's not quarterly. It's probably every half year. And so we don't do raises until someone's been around for a year.
Mm-hmm.
So don't expect a raise unless sometimes once in a while we'll do something sooner if there's a need to do it. But we try and keep things like fairly consistent so there's not this sort of constant.
So what formal process do you have to give your team feedback on what they need to improve and what they're doing well, and how do you do that?
I do it for my people in one-on-ones, and I'm like, I don't hold anything back. I'm like, this is what sucked this week. We got to fix this. Like, here's what you're good at. But I also try and on a monthly basis talk about careers. So like, what's your goal? What do you want to accomplish here? Let's set deadlines for ourselves. Let's make sure I'm giving you the work that you actually want to do, even if it's sort of step-up projects that you've never done before.
Yeah. What are the 5 metrics you look at most closely in the business? What's your scorecard that you every single day, week, month care most about?
Revenue. And there's like sub-metrics for revenue. So
Mm-hmm.
there's like metrics around payments processing. There's metrics around monthly recurring SaaS stuff, lead gen stuff. I look at active businesses. I look at
So the folks that signed up on your platform that are actively using
us to run their
Yeah.
business. I look at consumers,
Mm-hmm.
active consumers, and the frequency by which they're booking. And then I also look at GMV. So it's like dollars booked per month.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sort of a measure of like liquidity and happiness and how deeply our business is using us and how often our clients using us.
In the next 6 months, what's the biggest challenge and opportunity for you?
Well, we're focused.
Monetization?
Yeah, we're focused on cash flow positive, which we're on our way towards, which is exciting. But it's like that's the baseline for the stuff that we actually want to do.
Yeah.
So we want to become a thriving marketplace. We want to be a consumer brand. Like we're big. 30% of stylists have signed up for us. Like that's insane. But we don't actually have a huge consumer footprint.
When consumers sign up through the platform to book the appointments, do you get their email address and have the ability to remarket to them?
Yeah.
So that's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of clients. But a lot of clients think about us as a utility to book with their existing stylist, right? As opposed to StyleSeat as a consumer brand, just like Birchbox, just like Rent the Runway, just like sort of these other
Yeah.
big, Open Table, et cetera. Like we haven't gotten there yet. So we want to move from this awesome indie underdog platform that's like really helping small business owners to this is the place that you go, just like Uber for transportation or Lyft, right? This is the place that you go to book beauty.
Yeah. And you talked about, but a big focus that a lot of VCs are publicly writing about is the importance of companies that have raised a lot of money that are Series B, Series C, to get to cash flow positive, focus on monetization. Is that something that you're, like, what have you noticed overall in the venture community and the tech community in the Bay Area? Like, what's happening the last year that you can give, because one of the things that I often think is, what originates in Silicon Valley permeates throughout the country, right? It starts in Silicon Valley, it goes to LA, it goes to New York. So the things that VCs are talking about, pushing on, what companies are thinking and feeling, it starts where there's the most activity. What are what are the conversations entrepreneurs are having, and what are VCs worried about or pushing focus about?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I spoke with a very famous VC. I remember this before we raised our last round, and I was like, look, we did, 170 million in bookings this year, and then we went to 500 this year, and then we did over $1 billion, and it's all organic, and we're not paying for any of it, and it's just people are coming. And he was like, that growth is not strong enough for us to even consider talking to you. This is one of the most famous VCs, and I was just like, oh, okay. He's like, we want to see like 10x, not 2x. And I was like, but it's entirely organic. And he's like, we don't care about that. Like, we want like, you need to like own the industry in 2 years. And so you go from expectations like that, where VCs are like, it has to be vertical line up. And so you get companies that are spending their way into that growth and doing everything that they can do because they don't think that they can actually raise if they don't do it. They think if I don't do this, it's death. And then now when I've been just talking to VCs, because I'm just sort of saying like, what does the market look like? Because as a CEO, you put your head down, you work, and then you come up when you're decide you want to know what's happening in VC. And everyone is like, unit economics, profitability, viability. And it's like, wow, how times have changed. And it sucks for business owners because you don't want to do this thing. You really want to do this thing, but you're sort of pressured into this other thing. And I mean, we did it a little bit. I think we were very lucky though. Like we don't spend money on marketing. We never really have. So it's all been organic, but we like really fostered the ecosystem as opposed to like focusing on monetization products. So I'd say it's a little bit of a shift this year is we decided in like Q2, Q3, like it's time to focus on monetization. And so I think that's consistent now. It's not a bad thing. It means that companies will raise a little less. It means that it'll take a little bit longer to build your business, but you'll have a profitable business, you'll be making money, you won't die. So it's not a bad pressure. It's just hard when the pendulum swings. What is the pendulum? This way. So far to the left and right. Like that's when it's really challenging.
Yes.
And investors are, again, they make bets, but they're like, we want to assume that everyone's Google. And so you sort of have to walk in the room and be like, we're Google. You can't walk in the room and say, I'm going to 5x your money in the next 3 years. Like they just want to invest in you. So it's a challenge with the model. So you just have to play that game if you want to do venture. And venture isn't for everyone. Like I wouldn't say like go raise as much money as you possibly can because there's upsides and downsides.
Yeah. I have to say I've done a lot of these events now with folks that have already been successful for a very long time and who are on their second and third business. It's so different and it's so much more meaningful to see somebody that's so close to all of our journey and so relatable. Your story is amazing. You are amazing. You're an incredible role model for every person in this room, every entrepreneur in the arena. I don't have a single doubt when I tell you every single person here is rooting for your and your team's success, and you deserve every bit of it. And thank you so much for being with us here tonight, Melody.
Thank you so much. I'm going to do it next year.